Hey, hi. So this video is actually the conclusion of exposing the gender brain myth and the series that I've been doing on myths, emotions and brains is the final sort of conclusion video in all the three series. So what did we talk about? We talked about the three myths. The first myth being, emotions are displayed on the face with expressions we recognize, and this is something that we need to be actually aware of, and we know that it's not true based on the video that I had shared with you on for example Serena Williams example, where the expression that she had in her face, which is a winning movement, if it is looked at standalone, actually looks like terror. So what is most important in this particular myth is that the context has to be in place before you decide what is the expression. In fact, there's another picture that I showed to you of a child eating a watermelon with out of a very kind of a serious face, but it is actually real happiness. So unless the context is seen, the first myth of emotions are displayed on the face with expressions we recognize probably is not true. So we need to be aware of that, right? Then the second myth is women are more emotional than men, and this is again stereotypes that we need to be very, very aware of. Because based on the study done by Lisa Feldman Barrett, one of the top 50 psychologists in the world, and the kind of brain imaging techniques that was done with an experiment in her lab of a lady who who with a male haircut and a female haircut, when was shown with, to people with subtle anger as an expression, when the female was shown, it was said that she's really over emotional, and when the male was shown, it was said that the person is having a hard day. And this is both male and female sort of feel that this is what is true, that women are more emotional than men, and this can really impact women in many ways, especially when they take positions, whether in law or in business, at the leadership level. So we need to be very, very aware of the stereotype and say, when we take a better decision, whether that is coloring our process of making decisions. The third is there are dedicated emotional circuits in the brain, and this is again not true, because it seems as though that emotions are happening to us, but actually it is something that we can create, instead of looking at it like a past kind of a pattern of behavior and sort of therefore this is how the emotion will be in the future. The underlining aspect that we need to really remember is you are the architect of your experience. Now, having said all of this and the three myths that are there, and if you want to know a little more details of what I've spoken about, go and watch each of these videos that are there in my YouTube channel, Myth 1, 2 and 3. Now, having said that, there was an article that I was also reading about the dialogue about boy brains and girl brains, and it makes us overlook the important point that although there are average differences, boys and girls are far more similar than they are different. And this is a study that's actually made by Fine from the University of Melbourne. And what is coming out is that while popular science comes up with a lot of research on important differences between boys and girls brains, and sometimes suggests that the two should be taught differently and possibly separately, these commentators seem to be getting a lot of attention. But what we need to keep in mind is this can create a lot of damaging consequences, both not only in classroom for children but at home and in workplace. Because first, the claims are often made on the basis of isolated brain imaging studies that are not being replicated, and in some cases have also been found wrong. And so these implications or scientific implications, understanding of the brain and how it relates to psychology, is still in its infancy stage. So one of the things that there is lack of knowledge, and while it is popular in sort of publishing these, we need to be very aware and see the overall aspect of it. And therefore what needs to gain more attention is the understanding that everyone is a mix of masculine and feminine qualities or energies, and there's no fixed way in which the qualities line up. Having said that, the second thing that we need to remember is the behavioral studies. So while there are extensive behavioral studies on this, they overshadow decades of behavioral research that go against the idea that differences matter. So definitely differences are good, so which is something that we need to be aware of. So while popular science says that is playing up differences between boys' brains and potentially damaging consequences in the classroom and beyond is something that we need to be very, very aware of before we decide on which is right or wrong. So having brought all the knowledge of the myths about emotions, gender and brains is not with an idea to say that these are the differences and this is how it is, and one is better than the other, but it is to become more and more aware of the stereotypes that exist in the world, and accordingly keep that in mind before we take any decisions. And what becomes extensively important in the overall series is the message that I want to give is it's just about the masculine and feminine energy, balancing your masculine and feminine energy to optimize your happiness. That's what becomes most important, because each one of us has both masculine and feminine qualities in us. Like as a woman, I might want to climb trees. As a man, there are those subtle and soft qualities that a person might have. So nothing is right or wrong. So it's for us to tap those energies when it's required, especially in various situations. Like is what I would want to bring that as a key message is in the entire series of emotions, genders, and brains, the myths about emotions, gender, and brains. So having said that, to know more about brain science and to tap the 3 secrets of the brain to know your superwoman strength, please attend my webinars, the given links below. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel. And if you want to have a look at the remaining 3 myth peaks, go to my channel and do an LCSS like, comment, share, and subscribe. And it is great, gathering all of this information and presenting it to you. I hope you all learned from this. It'll be great if you put in your comments there so that it makes it more interactive. Thank you so much for watching.